So let me just tell you what the flipping is. So up until now, when David was testing the oysters and cleaning them, he would have to he and colleagues would physically lift them out of the water, and so scrub them and get the barnacles and whatever off the cages. Now he has these baskets which are, freestanding, and when you go to clean them, you flip them over and the seagulls clean the actual basket.
Nature-based solution right there, right? Yeah. Well, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Stream podcast, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarni, a water strategy advisor and investor, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And a big thanks to our long-term partner and sponsor, Raymond James, and our charity partner. And in this season of Water and Nature, we are delighted to welcome back an old-time friend and a former guest from many seasons ago, Professor Fiona Regan, who is the founding director of DCU Water Institute and a professor of chemistry as well. Fiona, welcome back. Good to see you.
Well, thank you so much for having me back. I'm really delighted. Thanks a lot.
I was trying to think actually how long ago it was, and I think it was probably season 1 or 2, wasn't it, when we first had you on the stream. So I'd love to think that we've evolved our podcasting skills, but that's probably quite subjective.
Tom, the podcast has evolved. Each of us has not evolved very much.
No. What's the opposite of evolution? With de-evolved, right? Devolution.
Devo. Actually.
Okay. There we go. So, but I think before we get going, because Fiona, there's loads of amazing things we want to catch up on. And I know in the last podcast, if memory serves me right, we touched upon water quality and the kind of new project you're working on with oysters and mussels, which is amazing, and eDNA. But first of all, I think a big congratulations is in order, because DCU Water Institute has reached a 10-year anniversary in 2025. So congratulations. I mean, I think it was your vision as the founding director. So if you were to make the analogy to a startup surviving 10 years, you've crossed the chasm of doom. So congrats.
Wow.
Congratulations. Yeah, that must be quite a proud moment for you last year and reaching the 10-year milestone.
Well, it actually was a really proud moment, and it's nice to hear you say that because it felt like a startup. Now that is from somebody who has never started up a business, so I'm sorry. Apologize to all you business people out there. But I've taken advice from Will over the years and listened carefully, and others. And I have to say, since we established in 2015, it has been fantastic. It did come from a background of love of nature and water from myself, because I grew up around it, coming from the Atlantic coast, the northwest of Ireland, having a stream at the end of my own garden, and always really, being involved with nature. So that was in my blood. And of course, being a chemist, you want to understand what's going on in nature. And at the time, the university was really open to giving it a chance. And DCU, being a young university, you can do things, you can come up with ideas and you can run with them. And I really appreciate the university for letting that happen. So yeah, we've done lots of really interesting things. Our membership has grown from, being, a few members at the start to over 49, I think now, and also members from across the 5 faculties, which is really important to me because, as you know, water isn't just about chemistry, it's about engineering, it's about life sciences, but it's also about poetry and it's about prose. I mean, one of my favorite pieces to have read is Joyce's understanding of what water is, and Bloom in Ulysses, and how he understands what water is. And, it's everywhere. Water is everywhere. And now that we're in a climate crisis, that's a water crisis. And so we've had to really look at, within the growth of the Institute, we've had to look at how to develop mitigation solutions and also how to communicate about adaptation. So look, I don't want to take the fun out of the start of this wonderful podcast, but yeah, it's been a really proud, successful journey. We have new academics who are undergoing really collaborative, multidisciplinary research, working with industry, working with agencies, NGOs, also a lot of citizen science, as we had started talking about when we met before, but that has grown and grown. And we're really leading out on citizen science and citizen engagement in the Institute. But yeah, look, thanks for flagging it. We are really delighted. If I could just point to one, I suppose, really interesting thing that we had at our presentation in December at our celebration, and it was a piece of music that was developed on the back of a data set that we got from a river in Sligo in the northwest of Ireland. And this river we had been capturing turbidity data where we picked up the 4 storms between kind of October and January. And we made a piece of music against that. And it was something that we played at our celebration. And it was quite remarkable to see that fusion of music, science, environment, water flowing, rivers, and so on. So yeah, it has been a really exciting and successful and fulfilling journey.
Hey, Fiona, a couple of things, a few things actually. How old is DCU? You said it's a young. I mean,
It
is it
is, yeah,
young in general, or is it young by Ireland standards? Like a
it
thousand
is,
years
yeah.
old.
Yeah, I mean, Trinity College is the oldest, but DCU is less than 50 years old. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a
It,
very young university.
and what was the Joyce reference? And the reason I ask is that a friend of mine gave me Finnegan's Wake to read, and I am determined to read it. But so what was the James Joyce reference to water?
Yeah, so in Ulysses, there's a beautiful piece that
Oh,
Joyce
okay.
has written where it starts, with Bloom as water lover, and he continues. I mean, it's a short piece, but he talks about what water. It's all one sentence with no punctuation, and yeah, it's fantastic. It's how I feel like I'm speaking, actually. So apologies for that.
No, this
Um,
is great. This will be helpful for Finnegan's Wake, I think. I don't think there's any
yeah,
punctuation in the book at all. But
and it's just
no,
amazing to read something like that. But the way he describes water is almost like he has looked way ahead. So he
mm,
talks about, flooding, and he talks about climate, and he talks about infrastructure, and he talks about leaks, and he talks about all of these things in this beautiful flow, which is again, like water flowing. And it's really around
mm,
how important Bloom, the character, saw water to be. And he talks about places in Dublin, obviously, because it's based in Dublin. But I'd urge anyone who loves water to read that piece in Ulysses, which is, quite short, but quite powerful
Mm.
about water.
I will read that, and who knows, it may, be our opening line for this episode, Tom. Maybe.
I think a couple of things. I think we should dig out that part of the
Yes.
text you're talking about. In fact, I've got an old weathered copy of Ulysses from university days, going back 20 plus years. I'd have to dig it out. But
So
yeah,
you've
I think,
actually read it. You've read Ulysses.
yeah,
Wow.
back in the day, tried, as you mentioned, there's a lot of paragraphs without punctuation and stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
It wasn't the easiest read, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm trying to remember that section on water, but I think we should 100% dig it out and include it as part of this
Mm,
stream promotion, as well as
perfect.
the song that you had created based on the river data.
Fantastic. Oh,
If you can
wow.
send that to us, we'd love to kind of bundle it in
Right. It,
and link to it.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. So, yeah, and I think how you linked, because if you look at like the vision of what you set up for DCU, linking those different faculties and the different stakeholders of policy, engineering, finance, it's quite rare, I think, to hear someone talk about the need for arts and literature
Mm.
as part of
mhm.
that. I don't often hear people when they're talking about the next accelerator or the next kind of gathering of stakeholders to actually
Yeah.
include that as a reference. So, yeah,
Well,
kudos.
it was something I felt really important, was really important in terms of trying to make it work. And when we did the music piece at the celebration in December, and we played it and people were asked to close their eyes. And I thought, scientists are not going to close their eyes and listen to this. And I looked around the room. It was really, really interesting because it only lasted for about 4 minutes. And it was just quite powerful, how people allowed themselves out of their discipline to,
Right.
immerse in something new. And I think that's potentially how we're going to communicate the water crisis. It's around that fusion, I think.
Making it human.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great icebreaker for the start of any conference. You're trying to get people to network in different disciplines, and they're already close your eyes, guys. Let's listen to a song for 4 minutes and see the reaction. I love it.
Tom, brilliant.
Okay, well, we'll get the link from you, Fiona. So congrats on DCU. And I think one of the kind of concepts we've spoken about, and I know you've posted about it on your socials as well, is sort of environmental DNA, so eDNA. So for people who perhaps are completely new to it, can you give us a bit of a kind of the explainer maybe on what eDNA is, and then the latest project DCU is working on as well?
Absolutely. So for any of us, when we walk about, when we move about, we drop pieces of ourselves, our skin, into the space. So in the water environment, anything that moves around that particular body of water can release some of itself into the water. So it could be part of its scales, mucus, whatever. And so that release of part of that organism, that fish, that shellfish, virus, whatever it is, that release is a kind of fingerprint to its presence at that time. And so it has important information. It has DNA. It has the building blocks of that, part of the building blocks of that individual, shall we say. And so there's a science now that is looking at eDNA, and that E stands for environmental, or environment DNA. And so, in other words, the DNA that has been left lying about. So we exploit that opportunity, and we look at, can we collect some of that DNA, and can we detect what has been present? Now, it's very difficult to do it in a way that can be reproducible and that could give a lot of information, but we have been really successful, and this has been led by Professor Anne McDermott here in the Institute, where she used an enzyme-based system, CRISPR-Cas, well-known enzyme-based system, to develop specific environmental DNA probes. So specific little tags, let's say, that would be representative of a species. And so we started out back in 2020, I'd say, before that, just focusing on Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon is a really important species in Ireland, really important, and of course across the globe. And we were working on a project that was funded by our Marine Institute, which was looking at tagging Atlantic salmon, going through this particular piece of freshwater to Marine Lake in the west of Ireland. It's a place called Burrishoole, a beautiful place. And so we were based there, and the focus really was, on how do we identify that Atlantic salmon was here? And so we developed a sensing probe for Atlantic salmon. And we since tested that with colleagues in Canada to look at Atlantic salmon versus other salmon species. And so we've published that. But now we've recently received funding from the Marine Institute again to look at developing out this same technology, but to look at maybe invasive species, maybe look at viruses that are impacting aquaculture, really anything that will shed some part of its DNA that we can collect. And so one of the PhD students will specifically look at the environmental DNA, but also another student, my student, will look at how do you capture it? How do you filter it out of the water? And how do you get enough of it so that you can actually sense it, so that you can actually collect it and analyze it? So again, we have this really nice collaborative project. There's 5 PhD students actually on it. And we look at gathering some samples and then developing some environmental DNA based sensors, and they would be specific for certain target species.
Fiona, that's really interesting, to say the least. How do you see this playing out in terms of, okay, you leveraging eDNA technology to understand, the decline of Atlantic salmon, the impacts, invasive species. Do you then, are you then in a position to inform public policy and engage in, the commercial fishing industry in a different way? And also, one of the pieces of the puzzle here is, you know, people that use water for recreation but have no idea about the quantity of water, the quality of water, and biodiversity. So, like, what are the trajectories potentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I suppose where we can exploit these type of really innovative types of science, we can do an awful lot more. So if you take the example of maybe people who want to swim in a water body and they want to know about the water
Hmm.
quality, current policy, current European legislation requires us to monitor between May and September. So it's a bathing season. And they monitor for E. coli, enterococci during that period. And those current monitoring times might be take a sample and 48 hours later or 72 hours later, you might get a result. And during that time, there might have been a stormwater overflow, there might have been, a pollution incident, and you just may have been swimming in what has been not healthy water. So these kind of technologies can help us, if we can develop them, they can help us to get what we call more near real time information. So we
Hmm.
don't have to wait for those 2 or 3 days, but rather we might be able to get a measurement that morning. And so get an app on your phone that would say it's, the water quality is good, or, a traffic light system or something like that.
Mm.
So we are close to, I think, getting to the point where we can have information more quickly. But the quality of that information is what policymakers are concerned about. So in other words, in bathing water quality, the reporting requirement is colony forming units. So it's all around those bacteria that can grow. Can you give that number? And so the
Hmm.
technology is not there yet for giving that compliance related data. And so it's very hard then to convince policymakers about this new technology. And so we're at that point where we're convincing them that, look, this information is good for health and safety, and you'll have to wait a bit longer, maybe a few funding cycles, to get what you're looking for. But we are
Hmm.
on the trajectory. And certainly with environmental DNA, where we have real challenges in terms of climate change and invasives, that information, with environmental DNA will be forthcoming and is very useful in terms of, um, those people who are trying to monitor, let's say, protected areas, for example. Their whole area of marine protected areas is becoming more and more important. So these types of technologies are slowly but surely coming to the fore, but they're just not there yet. And I think
Hmm.
getting policy to see the value of these, but before they're giving them exactly what they want, is difficult. It's a challenge.
Right. So a big part of this is education, awareness of the technology communicated in layman's terms, so policy people can look at it and say, okay, this is really interesting. I can plug it in here, and it helps inform a decision
Yeah.
in terms of, the risk to the commercial fishing industry, but also, industry around recreational water use.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the key to all of this is that if you're developing technologies and you're doing science, that you talk to policymakers very early on and you understand what they need.
It,
At least it kind of helps drive the design, let's say.
right.
But, it might take a while for adoption. That's the key.
And, I can go on and on about this, but just real quick, where in the world is eDNA actually being used in informing public policy? I mean, is there, a country, a region where it's pretty well advanced, or is everyone sort of in the same place of we've got this new tech and it's that education awareness piece? Is there a part of the world you can point to
Yeah.
that is doing it
So,
well?
I mean, there are key
Ish.
individuals in the US, for example, that have been doing studies around invasives and transport on vessels and so on.
Hmm.
I would say we're leaders in the space in terms of pushing environmental DNA to sensors. We really have led in that space um, with the work that we've done. But certainly, I think environmental DNA has focused a lot on invasives. And it is, though, going
Oh,
to, now that we have the capacity, it is going to grow. But I think what we need is to move out of just and biologists will kill me for saying this, to move out of the biological domain singularly and to look at that integration with engineering. And you know me, I always come back to
okay.
this piece. It's all very well having a fantastic probe for something, but you have to figure out then, well, how am I going to get the data out of that? How am I going to get the information out of that? And so
Right.
that's where we are, as you know, that's what we like to do and that's why I think we've had success in that we're able to, critical success for us in relation to the environmental DNA was to be able to use CRISPR-Cas at 37 degrees so that we could integrate it with sensor components. And it's some of those very simple discussions that you have around the table with a chemist, a biochemist, an engineer, a microfluidics expert, and you're saying, well, this has to be less than 90 degrees. And we can't do 4 steps, we can only do 2. And so it's those discussions then that can, make that leap forward. And I think, to be honest, I think we've been really, really good in that space.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say
Thanks.
that about us? I hope
Oh,
so.
you're Fiona, feel free to brag.
Okay, bragging over for now.
So in answer to the question, Ireland and DCU, even though Fiona's very humble to kind of admit it, but I think it's so interesting, especially the kind of the intersection when you're talking about recreational water and then actually which data points are you looking for, and then how do you actually communicate that to the public without scaring them, and then the traffic light system, how far do you go and into what kind of pollutants are you trying to monitor? So yeah, interesting to see you guys are leading that. Another big development that you've been working on, Fiona, is a trial. Is it safe to call it a trial? But a project involving 18,000 oysters introduced in the east coast of Ireland. And this is kind of coming back to the area we spoke about many years ago on kind of improving water quality. And I think it's about as nature-based solution as you can get, right? We often, I think, when it comes to water quality, default and talk about filtration and membranes and the tech side. So it's kind of an interesting take looking at improving pollution levels. So can you talk a bit about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for bringing this up. I mean, I think this is one of the most exciting projects that I've been involved with, actually. And it didn't come from me. It came from a business, a really innovative business that have set up a foundation called the Green Ocean Foundation. And the 18,000 oyster project is actually phase 3 of an oyster reef development project that this company had started to look at. And what they did initially, and it's David Lawler is the person that I've been working with, what they did initially was to look at around the East Coast a number of sites where they would have put boxes of, let's say, 60 oysters or 20 oysters, and left them there for a period of time to see how they fared. How did they get on? How did they like it? And so then they came up, they scaled that a small bit, and then they decided on a particular location to go for their large scale one, which is this 18,000 one. And they came up with Dún Laoghaire. But Dún Laoghaire is has a history of oysters, actually. I mean, 200 years ago was the last time we saw oysters in Dún Laoghaire, and they were there for hundreds of years before that. They were overfished or overharvested. So I think David in his wisdom and his colleagues felt, look, this would be a really fantastic cultural heritage opportunity as well as being a really important, water quality, water improvement study. So he and I had been working just a little bit chatting about water quality, and he was talking about the initial work that he had done. And so we started talking about contaminants in the marine environment, which is an area, of course, that I'm very interested in. We work a lot on, determining pesticides and pharmaceuticals and perfluorinated chemicals. These PFAS, or forever chemicals, is what people know them as. So we've been monitoring those quite a lot over the last while. And so I suggested to him that maybe we could look at, could these oysters be sentinels? Could they be our indicators of the impact of contaminants of concern, but as well, maybe being indicators of climate change effects, that convergence of climate and chemistry. And so we started taking some water samples last year before the oysters came to Dún Laoghaire, and we were able to say, yes, there's chemical groups in there. And so now what we're doing is we're going to be monitoring routinely, and we're also going to be monitoring the oysters themselves on a kind of 6-monthly basis. And we'll monitor them. We'll use a technique called non-target screening. So we'll look at tens of thousands of chemicals in there. And we'll also try and see, are there indicators within the oysters themselves that indicate climate-related effects or chemical-related effects. So it's a very exciting project. And I spoke to David today, and he has also now looked at expanding that to a third location. So there's another small location and a third location as well in Dublin Bay. So this is very exciting. So I think by the end of 2026, there could be up on 40,000 oysters in Dublin Bay, with the objective of reef establishment. But something else interesting that he has been working on is, I think around June, July. So these oysters that were placed last year are 3 years old. They're native European oysters, so they're native to Ireland, and they are about to spawn in June, July. And so what he wants to do is to encapsulate them within a mesh so that when they spawn, that they're held safely and predation is limited. And so we can now, as scientists as well, work on seeing what the impact of chemicals are from the very earliest stages of the offspring of these oysters. So it's very exciting. So that's all the science bit. So we can underpin maybe some decisions around future reefs and stuff like that. And we can really underpin the development with scientific evidence. And I just love that. And this would never have come about if it weren't for working with David and the foundation. And what is fantastic about this foundation is that the work is funded by businesses that he would have connections maybe with. They fund various aspects. So for example, the baskets that may be used to house them, these fantastic flip baskets, they might be co-funded by some of these partners. And so bit by bit, he has established this amazing network of collaborators. And what's even better is that the people working for those companies are volunteers when it comes to doing the flipping, for example. So let me just tell you what the flipping is. So up until now, when David was testing the oysters and cleaning them, he and colleagues would physically lift them out of the water, and so scrub them and get the barnacles and whatever off the cages. Now he has these baskets which are freestanding, and when you go to clean them, you flip them over and the seagulls clean the actual baskets.
Nature-based solution right there, right? Yeah, I love it.
Amazing.
That is brilliant.
It's amazing. So he's going to flip on Friday. He's flipping every month, and volunteers come out and help, and it's just a fantastic example of collaboration.
When I get to Dublin, I think I want to volunteer.
Yes, great. Great.
Tom,
Yeah.
Tom, This
And
is
what
your
about you?
cue,
Oh
Tom.
my God, we'd love to come flipping with you,
There we
Fiona.
go. Fiona,
I
take
knew it.
that as
I knew it.
sort of a commitment.
Yeah. No, I'm taking you up on that. I'll follow up. But I have to point out that this was not my idea. We are just collaborating with them.
Mm,
Green Ocean Foundation have driven this. They have such a vision for this. It's fantastic. And it's lovely to come, like, we will get wonderful scientific outputs from it because when do you get an opportunity like this kind of test bed?
mm.
When, it's fantastic and it's on our doorstep. But it's really led by them, and it's fantastic. This is what really science should be all about. That you're
Mm.
building on something collaborative, and everybody wins from it. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I have some PhD students and a postdoc who are helping with the work, and they'll take samples and run them for various analyses. So students will benefit from it.
Mm.
Mm.
I think it's a really great story.
I
Love it.
love. Already got the this vision of when the time for flipping comes. The seagulls, they're ready. They're anticipating it. They're circling around,
I know.
waiting for the flip, talking to each other. The guys is coming, and then they hover
I,
down to get their next feed and do their
Well,
role.
there's a seagull study there, about once a month. Can they detect
it,
when it's happening? Yeah.
so this reminds me of the movie The Birds,
Oh yes.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Hitchcock. Yeah.
Hitchcock. Yeah. Oh my
How's
God. Yeah.
that?
That's
A little
scary. I don't know.
I yeah, so I don't know if I want to do it when the seagulls are out there,
Yeah,
just
that's
stay
scary.
away.
Mhm.
The living on the coast here, the seagulls they can be quite aggressive. I remember walking along the street with my family and having a sandwich and just went to raise it up, and the seagulls must have been eyeing up, said sandwich, swooped down and went over my head to grab it and carry on. And most
Wow.
people you speak to living along the coast will have a kind of a similar story of an encounter with a seagull. So, um, but in all seriousness, I think the collaboration you've done there, Fiona, is amazing because you've got the private sector and the finance coming in through businesses and then empowering the staff to sort of volunteer. Then you've got the research
Yeah.
side from DCU, and then you've got the foundation. So
Yeah.
very good. And I think is there kind of looking ahead of where this could kind of lead to, not only in terms of policy developments, but naturally, if you're flipping the oysters and you're finding certain traces of PFAS, and you know that in the region there's certain companies that are perhaps responsible for those PFAS, you can almost make the link between the
I,
source of the pollution, right? I'm just thinking of where
Yeah.
this could
it,
go, right?
it,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
I mean, one of the things that always, I suppose, makes people a bit scared is
Mm.
information and data.
Right, right.
sure.
But I think my own personal view is that we need more information. We need more monitoring data, and then we can make better decisions because European legislation is changing. Wastewater treatment now will require, an extra add-on to remove these micropollutants, so the
Mm,
pharmaceuticals and so on. So things are changing, and so companies know this. They know this, and I think companies in general are trying to be more sustainable. And with PFAS, this is a global problem. This is just
Mm.
emerging as a challenge here in Ireland potentially because we haven't monitored before, but we know it's there. So anywhere there, that we have rainproof jackets, there's going to be some evidence of these
mm,
perfluorinated compounds. So it's there. We just need to monitor for it. And I think the policy is there. We have all of the instruments, and I think industries are trying to make changes to adapt. And I think, we know that biodiversity is so critical. We know that our coasts are so critical for leisure, for economics, for all of those things. And I think, the
right.
more open and transparent we are about data, the better we're going to be. So it's really around changing that mindset and being
Mm.
more open to good quality scientific data.
Very good. Yeah, the use of oysters is so interesting, isn't it? Because you've no doubt seen the videos of the kind of before with the contaminated cloudy water, and then afterwards they've kind of worked their magic. So to kind of have
Yeah,
18,000 of them, and then to
yeah,
monitor and look at the data and the improvements to water quality where they are, they're like your small army of water cleaners kind of doing their thing. So
yeah.
um, Good stuff. So kind of then looking ahead, Fiona, if we are to speak to you on the stream in another 10 years' time, or you've done 20 years at DCU, Will, I don't know what season we'll be on in another 10 years' time. We're already on 9, so maybe we'll be
We'll
into
be on
season
10. We'll still be on 10, Tom. It'll be a long season.
season 9 is going to be a decade long. But Fiona, what do you, if you could look back, what's kind of you've obviously had the vision, bringing together these different faculties, different disciplines. What would you love to achieve in the next 10 years to sort of look ahead?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I suppose with age and wisdom and all that, I can see that the way we can solve a lot of our water related problems is working with communities. Today I had a conversation with a person in the Northwest living in a forested area. They're really concerned about pesticide use. It's full of lakes and rivers. And so we're going to work together with the community to do some monitoring so that they have evidence so that they can actually make a case, if needs be, to, the foresters and so on. And so I would like to see us working more collaboratively with communities, but with really good scientific basis. And I think that's what's needed. And that's what's been called for. We can see it growing. There's a momentum here around citizen science. And I think people don't consider citizen science as being a real science, but it's around engaging. It's around engaging properly to have a framework. So it's not a case of just saying yes, we'll help you. It's around, well, what kind of information do you need? How are you going to use it? How are we going to gather data to help you to make that case? And it's collaborative. It's enabling people really. And overall, then the output for us is we're still doing research, but we're filling data gaps, really important data gaps. And so we have the techniques, we have, new innovations. So for example, at the moment, one of our projects will look at developing very simple eDNA-based sensors and also antibody-based sensors that like are dipsticks that we can measure algal bloom, onset of algal blooms. So what we need to do is translate our innovations into something that is usable by groups, by communities, so that then we can actually fill data gaps with good quality data. And so that's my aim, is really not just to kind of build citizen science in that way, but rather to provide them with tools that are improving the quality of the information then that we can get.
Fiona, those dipsticks for measuring algal blooms, are they here and now, or are they being developed?
Yeah, so we've developed a set and we've tested them because we have had a problem in Ireland with a number of lakes, but Lough Neagh is the one, the largest lake, and it's the one, I suppose, that reached a lot of media attention. It's in Northern Ireland. And we tested them for microcystin. So microcystin is a toxin, a freshwater, kind of brackish water toxin. And we have developed an antibody-based sensor for that. And so we've developed these little dipsticks that just change color. And it's a visual test that the citizen could use. So we've done our initial test, and we're hoping to scale that up now. So it's that kind of thing, Will, that we want to do, is take usable technologies, scale them. But these kind of things are costly, so you need to look at what's the best way to do it.
Okay. I'll follow up with you on that.
Please do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Fiona, always so nice chatting with you. Again, big congratulations on 10 years and what you've achieved. And I think you've already led the way in quite a few areas, and you've already kind of galvanized hundreds, if not thousands, of people in citizen science within that 10 years. So I'm excited to see if that's going to be more of a focus for the next decade, what you can achieve in filling those data gaps, like you said. So thanks so much for your time. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise. And can I just say, though, something about what you're doing? There's a lot of podcasts out there, but apart from me, the guests that you have on and the topics that you cover are so relevant and so important. I mean, you could look back to the first one and replay them, and they're just as relevant. And this is the thing about water. People aren't moving as quickly as we need to. So thank you for creating this stream. It is just fantastic. The quality of it is so good. It's entertaining, but it's so relevant. So I really applaud you guys on that. And I'm glad to have been able to participate and to support it in whatever way we can.
Oh, Fiona, you're a gem.
Fiona, I don't know if
gem.
you can see with the lighting, but me and Will are both blushing. So thank you very much.
You're very kind.
Yeah, no, I mean it. It's fantastic. I love it. I've told loads of people about it, and keep doing it. It's so important. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks. Well, we will soldier on. Thanks so much. Well, Fiona, always a pleasure. I'm wishing you the best of luck for the next few projects. Always a delight sort of seeing what you're up to on social as well. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll speak soon.
Hopefully speak to you in person. Bye. Take care.
You're inspiring.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.